The sun had just begun to set over Earth, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. It was supposed to be a peaceful evening, like any other. People went about their business, unaware that the greatest tragedy in human history was about to unfold. No one could have predicted the invasion. Not like this. Not so suddenly. It began with a flash in the sky. At first, it looked like a comet, burning bright as it fell toward Earth. But this wasn't a natural phenomenon. The object grew larger and larger, a massive ship breaking through the atmosphere at an alarming speed. It was no comet. It was a warship, and it wasn't alone. As the sky darkened, the sound of explosions echoed across the globe. Cities shook. Buildings crumbled. Panic spread like wildfire. People ran, screamed, and tried to make sense of the chaos. But there was no sense to be made. The aliens had arrived. Their ships were everywhere, appearing out of nowhere, like ghosts in the night. A young human girl, Maya, was on the streets when the attack began. She had just finished school for the day and was heading home, excited to tell her parents about the new book she'd picked up. But in an instant, her world changed forever. A massive explosion ripped through the street, sending her flying into the air. The pain was instant, but it didn't matter. She wasn't alone. Maya saw her friends and neighbors scrambling for cover, and then everything went dark. The invasion was unlike anything humanity had ever experienced. The aliens were ruthless, their technology far beyond Earth's understanding. Their ships, enormous and sleek, moved with precision, cutting through Earth's defenses like a hot knife through butter. And on the ground, the invaders were like nothing anyone had ever seen. Towering creatures with smooth metallic skin, their eyes glowing with an eerie red light. They moved with incredible speed, eliminating anyone who dared stand in their way. Maya's family had been among the first to hear the news. Her mother, a well-known scientist, rushed to the lab to try and make sense of the alien threat. Her father, a military officer, immediately got to work organizing Earth's defense. The two of them, usually so strong, so composed, were suddenly helpless. Maya's older brother, Daniel, tried to keep the family calm, but the fear in his eyes was clear. The world as they knew it was falling apart. When the invaders attacked Maya's neighborhood, it was swift. Her mother was working late in the lab when the first explosion shook the building. Her father, stationed at the base, was unable to get to her in time. Maya and Daniel had been caught outside when the aliens stormed in. There was no time to run, no time to escape. The invaders moved with terrifying precision, and the human resistance seemed helpless in their wake. Maya's last memory was of her brother, Daniel, desperately trying to protect her. He shoved her into a nearby alleyway, yelling at her to run. But she didn't make it far. Another explosion, louder than the first, hit just as she turned the corner. She was thrown to the ground, her body broken by the blast. Her last thoughts were of her family, her friends, and the love she had for her planet. But that was it. Her life was snuffed out, just like that, in an instant, and the world seemed to stand still in her absence. Back at Earth's military headquarters, the news of Maya's death, along with the growing devastation of the alien invasion, sparked something deep inside humanity. It was rage, it was grief, but more than that, it was the undeniable truth that Earth had been pushed too far. They had been attacked, and now they were facing extinction. They could no longer sit back and hope the alien forces would leave. They had to fight back. They had no choice. When the news of the attack reached the highest levels of government, there was no hesitation. The world's leaders met in secret, their faces grim as they came to one conclusion. Earth would fight back, and they would do so with everything they had. But this would not be a simple war. The loss of Maya, the countless lives lost in the attack, made it personal. This was no longer just about survival. This was about revenge. The alien race that had attacked Earth was known across the galaxy as the Zorathians, a cruel and technologically advanced species that had wiped out countless civilizations before. They believed in their superiority, and they viewed humanity as little more than an obstacle to their expansion. They had attacked Earth not out of need, but out of arrogance, thinking that humanity would crumble before them like every other race they had conquered. But they didn't understand one thing. Earth wasn't like the other planets they had invaded. Humans had a unique spirit, a fierce determination that no alien could ever comprehend. And that spirit had been ignited the moment Maya had been killed. Her death was the spark that set the fire of vengeance in motion. Humanity would not go down without a fight. In the next few days, Earth's leaders mobilized the strongest military forces the planet had ever seen. They called upon the most skilled soldiers, engineers, and scientists to form a new army, one designed to fight back against an enemy that was more advanced, more dangerous than anything humanity had ever faced. These soldiers were ready to die for their planet, ready to avenge the loss of their loved ones. But most of all, they were ready to make the Zorathians pay. The galaxy had underestimated Earth, and now they would pay the price. As Earth's military forces began to assemble, an eerie silence fell over the planet. The Zorathians had not expected a counterattack so soon. They believed their victory was assured. But they didn't know humanity. They didn't know what it meant to be human, to have love, loss, and the undying will to fight for what was right. They didn't know the power that came from the death of one innocent girl. Maya's death was not just the end of her life. It was the beginning of a new chapter for humanity, one where Earth would no longer be a helpless victim. The Zorathians had made a fatal mistake. As the first human soldiers prepared to embark on their mission to reclaim their planet, one thing was clear: Earth would fight back. And when they did, they would show the Zorathians the true strength of humanity. They would never forget the loss of Maya, and they would make sure the aliens would never forget Earth. The devastation from the alien invasion was still fresh in every human's mind. The sight of cities reduced to rubble, the cries of people who had lost their loved ones, and the haunting memories of the day when the Zorathians made their first strike. All of it was seared into the minds of every citizen on Earth. What had begun as an ordinary day quickly turned into a nightmare. But the true horror wasn't just in the attack itself. It was the realization that humanity had been caught off guard, vulnerable, and weak in the eyes of the alien invaders. But that was about to change. The death of Maya had been the spark, but it had lit a fire in the hearts of every human alive. The anger, grief, and desire for revenge were palpable. No longer would Earth be a passive target. No longer would humanity sit back and wait for the next attack. The entire planet had united under a single banner: vengeance. And now, it was time to turn that unity into action. Across the globe, governments scrambled to react. The world leaders met in underground bunkers, their faces grim but determined. The situation was dire, but they understood one thing. They had to fight back, and they had to do it quickly. The Zorathians had already proven their might, and the longer they waited, the more time they gave their enemies to plan, regroup, and strike again. The first step was to form a military coalition. Every nation on Earth sent its best soldiers, engineers, and scientists to contribute to the war effort. It wasn't just about armies marching into battle anymore. It was about pooling humanity's greatest minds and resources. Military experts from every country came together to form a united front, sharing their technologies and strategies to create the most formidable fighting force Earth had ever seen. As the days passed, humanity's determination to protect their home planet grew stronger. Earth's military-industrial complex kicked into overdrive, and soon, the production of war machines and advanced technology began. The world's most brilliant scientists worked tirelessly to develop cutting-edge weapons and defense systems. The first step was to ensure that Earth had a fighting chance against an enemy that was far more advanced than anything humans had ever encountered. One of the first innovations was the creation of exo-armors, a new class of advanced powered suits designed to enhance human strength, speed, and endurance. These suits were built to protect soldiers on the front lines and allow them to face the alien threat with some degree of power and protection. The exo-armors were made from a lightweight yet incredibly durable metal, and each one was equipped with energy shields, built-in weapon systems, and enhanced sensory capabilities. They were a far cry from the bulky armor of the past, sleek, advanced, and powerful. For the soldiers who would wear them, the exo-armors represented a new era of warfare. They weren't just men and women fighting. They were warriors equipped with technology that could level the playing field. As the first prototypes were tested, the results were promising. The soldiers inside the suits could lift heavy debris, sprint at speeds that seemed impossible, and withstand fire from energy weapons. But there was no time for perfection. They had to be ready, and fast. Meanwhile, in the far reaches of space, Earth's engineers were working around the clock to build the Star Destroyers, massive warships capable of traveling faster than light and carrying enormous weaponry. The Star Destroyers were humanity's answer to the alien ships that had launched the attack. These ships were equipped with powerful plasma cannons, shield generators, and gravity-based weapons designed to break through the toughest of alien defenses. The Star Destroyers were humanity's way of telling the Zorathians, "We will not be bullied." At the same time, AI technology was incorporated into every aspect of humanity's war effort. The creation of intelligent drones and robotic soldiers became essential in reducing casualties and increasing efficiency. These robots, equipped with advanced weaponry and armor, were deployed to scout alien positions and carry out dangerous missions on the front lines. They weren't perfect, but they were effective. The drones could infiltrate enemy lines, gather intelligence, and strike with precision, all while keeping human soldiers out of harm's way. But it wasn't just about technology. It was also about strategy. Earth's military leaders understood that fighting the Zorathians head-on would be a mistake. These alien forces were far superior in terms of raw power, and humanity couldn't afford to make a single misstep. They needed to fight smart, and that meant using their wits to outmaneuver the enemy. One of the strategies was to develop a cloaking device, a groundbreaking technology that would allow human ships and soldiers to become nearly invisible to alien radar and sensors. The cloaking devices weren't perfect, but they offered humanity a chance to strike first and avoid detection long enough to mount a counterattack. The use of cloaked ships and soldiers would give Earth the element of surprise, a crucial advantage in a war where any mistake could be fatal. The military also focused on building alliances with other alien races that had suffered under Zorathian rule. These races were eager to join forces with humanity, offering their advanced technologies and knowledge in exchange for a chance to take down the Zorathians once and for all. While the alliances were fragile, they gave Earth an opportunity to combine resources and knowledge, strengthening their position in the coming battle. Among the soldiers preparing for the fight was Captain James Archer, a seasoned military officer who had lost his own family in the invasion. His face was hard, his eyes steely with determination. He had seen the destruction firsthand, and there was no turning back. Archer was selected to lead one of the first missions into Zorathian territory, and he was ready. He was among the first to don the new exo-armor, and as he tested it out, he could feel the difference. The weight of the armor was nothing compared to the weight of his mission. He wasn't just fighting for himself. He was fighting for everyone who had suffered, for everyone who had lost someone they loved. As Archer prepared for battle, he found himself in a quiet moment, staring at the sky. The stars had once been a symbol of hope, of the unknown adventures that awaited humanity. Now they felt distant, almost unreachable. But he knew that the fight to protect Earth would be worth every sacrifice. The Zorathians had attacked Earth without mercy, without hesitation. They had shown no remorse, no respect for human life. And now, humanity would show them the same. In the war rooms, the commanders finalized the strategy. They knew they couldn't wait any longer. The Zorathians had shown no signs of stopping, And if humanity wanted any hope of survival, they had to act swiftly. The final preparations were being made. Soldiers were trained, weapons were ready, and the military units were poised for battle. The countdown had begun. As the last ship of the first wave prepared to launch, Archer stood at the front of the command center, his face grim but resolute. This was the moment he had trained for, the moment every soldier had been waiting for. No longer would they be the victims. They would be the victors. The whole world held its breath as the warships began to lift off, their engines roaring to life, ready to enter the battlefields of space. The human army was finally on its way to take the fight to the Zorathians. The Earth was ready. It was time for vengeance. The vast expanse of space stretched out before them, endless and unforgiving. Captain James Archer stood at the helm of the starship Vengeance, the first of Earth's new warships to leave the atmosphere and enter the unknown. He gazed out of the viewing port at the stars, his mind racing with thoughts of the mission ahead. The time for preparation was over. The war had begun, and humanity had taken its first step into the stars. Inside the ship, the atmosphere was a mixture of tension and anticipation. The crew members, soldiers, and engineers alike had trained for months, preparing for this very moment. They had worked tirelessly to get the starship Vengeance ready for battle. The massive ship, equipped with the latest technology and weaponry, was Earth's best hope in the fight against the alien Zorathians. It was humanity's first strike in what promised to be a long and brutal war. Captain Archer was not alone in his thoughts. Lieutenant Sarah Hawke, the ship's second-in-command, walked up beside him, her face grim but determined. She had been with Archer through countless missions, and she could see the weight of the responsibility on his shoulders. They had both lost so much during the Zorathian invasion, but there was no turning back now. The mission was clear: reach the Zorathian homeworld, strike at their core, and make them feel the wrath of humanity. "Captain," she said, her voice low but steady, "we're almost at the jump point. Ready to make history." Archer nodded, turning to face her. "We don't have a choice, Sarah. We fight now or lose everything. We trained for this, and we've got the technology. The Zorathians won't know what hit them." With a deep breath, Archer turned back to the massive window. The stars seemed to shimmer, each one representing a distant world, a place filled with the unknown. The ship's engines hummed as they neared the jump point, an area in space where they could activate their warp drive, a faster-than-light technology that would propel them across the galaxy. This was the first time humanity would use the technology in battle, and the tension was palpable. The warp drive was humanity's answer to the Zorathians' advanced ships. It allowed them to travel faster than light, making it possible to reach distant worlds in a matter of hours instead of years. But using the warp drive wasn't without its risks. A miscalculation or a sudden jolt could send the ship off course. And in space, there were no second chances. "We're ready," Lieutenant Hawke said, her fingers hovering over the control panel. "Initiating warp sequence in 5, 4, 3. The ship's lights flickered as the engines roared to life. There was a brief moment of weightlessness as the ship jumped into hyperspace, the stars blurring into streaks of light as the ship traveled faster than any human had ever traveled before. For the crew, the journey through hyperspace was disorienting but exhilarating. Time seemed to lose all meaning as they rocketed through the vast emptiness of space. The ship's onboard AI, Oracle, was constantly monitoring their speed, course, and energy levels, ensuring that everything stayed on track. But even with the advanced systems in place, Archer couldn't shake the feeling of unease that hung in the air. "I hate this part," Archer muttered, more to himself than to anyone else. Hawke gave him a small, knowing smile. "We all do, but it's the only way to get to them." As they traveled, Archer allowed himself a moment to think back on the events that had led them here. The invasion, the destruction of Earth's cities, the death of Maya, all of it had set them on this path. But now, there was no going back. Humanity's survival depended on their success, and they had to push forward, no matter the cost. The crew of the Starship Vengeance. The crew of the Starship Vengeance was made up of some of Earth's most skilled and capable individuals, each with their own reasons for being there. But what united them was a single, unyielding goal: to protect their home and take down the Zorathian threat once and for all. Commander Alex Stroud, the ship's weapons officer, stood in the war room, double-checking the ship's weapon systems. He was a seasoned fighter, a man who had seen battle and survived. He knew the Zorathians were formidable, but he also knew that Earth's soldiers were tougher than they gave credit for. Stroud had trained with some of the best, and the sight of humanity's advanced weaponry filled him with confidence. "Everything's green, Captain," Stroud reported, his voice steady. "The plasma cannons are ready, and the gravity bombs are set. We can hit them hard when we arrive." Archer nodded. "Good. Let's make sure we do just that." In the medical bay, Dr. Emily Jong, the ship's chief medical officer, ran through the emergency procedures one last time. She had treated everything from minor injuries to life-threatening wounds, but she had never faced a war like this. The Zorathians were unlike anything humanity had encountered before, and Dr. Jong knew that if things went wrong, she would have to keep her crew alive at all costs. "Prepare for casualties," Dr. Jong muttered under her breath, hoping she wouldn't have to live up to that warning. But the one person who was most affected by the journey was Private Ethan Rice, a young soldier who had joined the military after the Zorathian attack. His family had been among the first to perish in the invasion, and he'd sworn to take revenge. As the ship traveled through hyperspace, he stared out of his small bunk window, watching the stars stretch and blur into lines. His grip tightened on the armrest, his heart racing with anticipation. "Hey, Rias," Lieutenant Hawk called out from the doorway. "You all right?" Ethan turned, forcing a smile. "Just thinking, ma'am. About everything." "You'll get your chance," she said, her tone gentle. "We all will. Stay sharp." Rias nodded, trying to push aside the fear and uncertainty that gnawed at him. He wasn't just fighting for revenge. He was fighting for the future, for the Earth that was still standing, for the people he had lost. The moment of arrival. The journey through hyperspace lasted for hours, but it felt like days. As they neared their destination, the excitement and anxiety among the crew reached a boiling point. They had traveled across the stars, but now they were about to face their enemy. Entering the Zorathian system, Oracle's voice rang through the ship, crisp and calm. "Prepare for deceleration." The ship lurched as it exited hyperspace, the stars suddenly snapping back into focus. They were no longer in the emptiness of hyperspace, but in the heart of the enemy's territory. The Zorathian homeworld was just ahead, and Archer could see it, a massive dark planet surrounded by a fleet of alien ships. "This is it," Archer whispered, his heart pounding. "We've made it." The crew gathered around the command center, eyes glued to the screens as the first glimpses of the enemy fleet appeared on the radar. The Zorathian ships were massive, monolithic structures that seemed to pulse with an ominous energy. They were unlike anything humanity had ever built, with sleek, intimidating designs and powerful energy shields. "This is where we end it," Archer said, his voice resolute. "Prepare for battle. Full weapons power." The crew braced themselves as the Starship Vengeance closed in on the enemy fleet. The battle was about to begin, and there was no turning back. The cold, dark void of space was now filled with the chaotic hum of battle. The Starship Vengeance hovered on the edge of the Zorathian stronghold, its massive engines silent as they took in the view of the alien homeworld. The alien fleet had already detected their presence, and the countdown to war had begun. "Captain," Lieutenant Hawk called, her voice steady despite the tension. "We've entered the Zorathian gravity well. The homeworld is just ahead. The enemy fleet is moving into position to intercept us." Archer stood at the command console, eyes narrowed in concentration. "Lock weapons and prepare to engage. We fight with everything we've got." The crew of the Starship Vengeance knew what was at stake. They had crossed the vastness of space to reach this point, to strike at the heart of the Zorathian Empire. They had lost too much already. Friends, family, homes. And now they had a chance to finally make the aliens pay for the destruction they had caused. But as the enemy fleet grew larger on the screens, a sense of foreboding settled over Archer. The Zorathians were unlike any enemy humanity had faced. Their ships were massive, angular, and terrifying, as if designed solely to inspire fear. The alien race was known for its technological superiority and ruthless tactics, and their fleet was no different. Each ship bristled with weapons, and the sheer scale of their armada was overwhelming. Archer could feel the tension in the air, the sense of impending danger. They were outnumbered, but they had the element of surprise, and a new, powerful weapon on their side. "We have to hit them hard and fast," Commander Stroud said from his station, his voice low but resolute. "If we give them time to organize, we're finished." "Agreed," Archer replied, taking a deep breath. He clenched his fist on the armrest of his chair. "Let's show them what humanity can do." The starship Vengeance was equipped with advanced weaponry, including plasma cannons, gravity bombs, and the newly developed phase disruptor torpedoes, weapons designed to bypass the Zorathian shields. The torpedoes were humanity's trump card, a technology they had developed specifically to counter the alien threat. As the starship Vengeance moved closer to the Zorathian fleet, the enemy ships began to launch attack formations. Archer's eyes darted between the screens, watching as the Zorathian ships powered up their weapons. It was clear that they had expected an attack, but they hadn't expected Earth's new warships. "Ready the phase disruptors," Archer commanded. "On my mark, fire." The crew worked in perfect sync, the tension palpable. The ship's massive cannons hummed to life as the starship Vengeance prepared to unleash its first strike. On the screen, the alien ships loomed large, and the countdown to battle seemed to stretch for an eternity. Firing in 3, 2, 1, now. The first phase disruptor torpedo launched from the ship, cutting through space with incredible speed. The torpedo collided with the lead Zorathian ship, sending shockwaves through the enemy fleet. The alien vessel's shields flickered for a brief moment before the torpedo tore through them, striking the heart of the ship. The explosion was massive, sending debris flying into space as the ship disintegrated in a brilliant flash of light. A cheer erupted from the crew as they saw the first victory. But they knew it was just the beginning. The Zorathians were formidable, and this was only a small part of their fleet. "Move in," Archer ordered. "We don't stop until we've wiped out their entire fleet. No mercy." The starship Vengeance powered forward, weapons blazing. The crew was determined, but their nerves were tested as the Zorathian fleet retaliated. Massive beams of energy shot from the enemy ships, cutting through the darkness of space like deadly lasers. The starship Vengeance swerved and dodged, the ship's advanced shields holding up against the barrage of attacks. "Brace for impact," shouted Stroud as a massive energy beam grazed the ship's side. The ship shook violently, and alarms blared throughout the vessel. But the crew didn't falter. They had trained for this, and now it was their moment to prove themselves. Archer gritted his teeth as he steadied himself. The ship was damaged, but it wasn't crippled. "Give them everything we've got," Archer ordered. The starship Vengeance fired back with renewed fury. Plasma bolts and torpedoes streaked through space, striking the Zorathian fleet with devastating force. Ships exploded in fiery bursts, their once pristine structures now burning wrecks. Despite their advanced technology, the Zorathians were struggling to adapt to the ferocity of the human attack. The starship Vengeance was nimble, evasive, and relentless, and it was becoming clear that Earth's soldiers had an edge. But the Zorathians weren't giving up. As the battle raged on, the alien fleet began to shift tactics. They deployed smaller, faster ships, fighters designed to swarm the human warship. These ships were faster and harder to hit, and they began to surround the starship Vengeance, launching wave after wave of attacks. "Incoming fighter swarm," Lieutenant Hawk shouted, her eyes scanning the radar. "Focus on the largest group," Archer replied. "We'll take them down one by one." The starship Vengeance fired its forward cannons, the plasma beams cutting through the darkness and hitting the alien fighters with pinpoint accuracy. Despite the overwhelming odds, Archer and his crew refused to back down. The warship's weapons tore into the fighters, and slowly but surely, the human fleet began to thin the enemy ranks. But the Zorathian homeworld loomed just ahead, massive and ominous. It was a place of darkness, where even the stars seemed to cower in fear. The homeworld's atmosphere was thick with storm clouds, and the ground below was invisible from space. But Archer knew it was there, the heart of the Zorathian Empire. "We're not done yet," Archer said through gritted teeth. "Prepare to land. We're going in." The ground assault. The starship Vengeance was not just a warship, it was also equipped for ground operations. The next phase of their mission was to strike directly at the Zorathian stronghold on the planet's surface. The team would be landing on the surface to disable the Zorathian command center, cutting off their leadership and sending a clear message. The crew quickly prepared for the ground assault. Archer, Stroud, and Lieutenant Hawk suited up in combat gear, ready to face whatever awaited them on the surface. The landing zone was unknown, and they were fully aware that it could be a trap. But they couldn't afford to hesitate. Too many lives were at stake. As the starship Vengeance descended through the thick clouds of the Zorathian homeworld, the crew braced themselves. The atmosphere was unlike anything they had encountered before, dense and oppressive, as if the planet itself was resisting their presence. "We've got incoming," Stroud said, his voice tense. The scanners were picking up enemy movements near the landing zone. "Looks like the Zorathians have prepared a welcome party." "Just what we expected," Archer replied. "We're not backing down. We land, we fight, and we win." With a mighty crash, the starship Vengeance touched down on the alien planet's surface. The landing was rough, but the crew's training kicked in immediately. The doors to the ship opened, and they stormed out, weapons raised, ready to engage the Zorathian forces that awaited them. The ground was harsh and barren, the sky a sickly green hue that cast an eerie glow over the landscape. The Zorathians were waiting for them, a large force of soldiers equipped with advanced armor and energy weapons. "Stay sharp," Archer called out, leading his team into the fray. The first few Zorathian soldiers fell to the ground, their armor useless against Earth's firepower. But the alien forces quickly regrouped, launching a counterattack with fierce precision. It was a brutal, unforgiving battle, but Archer and his crew pushed forward, determined to finish what they had started. The Zorathians may have had the numbers, but the humans had something they didn't: unwavering resolve. The stormy skies above the Zorathian stronghold darkened even further as humanity's greatest hope for survival and vengeance reached its critical moment. The starship Vengeance, having survived countless waves of attacks, now stood at the edge of the Zorathian capital. This was it. There would be no turning back. The time for retaliation had come. Archer stood in the command center of the warship, his eyes fixed on the giant screen ahead. The Zorathian capital stretched across the horizon, a massive dark city full of looming towers and ominous structures. From the ship's vantage point, everything looked almost peaceful, but Archer knew that under the surface, a brutal war was about to unfold. Every step they took on this alien soil was a step toward final victory, or devastating defeat. "Captain," Lieutenant Hawk's voice broke through the tense silence. "The Zorathian forces are preparing for their last stand. We've picked up multiple warships moving into position. They know we're here." Archer clenched his fists, a surge of anger rushing through him. He could almost feel the presence of those who had suffered because of the Zorathians. His mind flashed to the faces of the innocent lives lost, people who had been wiped away in an instant. The alien race had crossed a line that no one could ignore. "Prepare for deployment," he ordered. "It's time to end this." The ground crew of the starship Vengeance was already gearing up for the final assault. This wasn't just going to be another battle. This was humanity's chance to put an end to the Zorathian Empire's reign of terror and to make sure they would never again threaten Earth or any other planet. The crew understood the stakes, and they were ready. Every soldier on board knew that their victory or failure would echo across the stars for generations. The Zorathian defenses. As the final battle approached, the starship Vengeance began its descent toward the surface of the Zorathian stronghold. The powerful warship shuddered as it broke through the thick layers of atmosphere, weapons systems primed and ready for anything. Archer could see the glowing lights of enemy defense cannons below, reaching into the sky like jagged fingers trying to pierce the darkness. "Captain, enemy fighters are closing in." Straub's voice came through the comm. "They're launching everything they have." "They won't stop us now," Archer replied, gripping the armrests of his command chair. "We've come too far." The starship Vengeance unleashed a barrage of missiles, and the ship's powerful lasers cut through the clouds, obliterating the first wave of alien fighters. But they kept coming. The Zorathians had built their defenses to withstand even the most powerful attacks, but they hadn't accounted for the strength of humanity's resolve. Archer's crew worked in perfect harmony, responding to each new wave with devastating efficiency. The enemy ships were fast, but the starship Vengeance was faster. The battle seemed endless as humanity's warship moved ever closer to the planet's surface. The crew was on edge, their eyes fixed on their targets, laser-focused on the mission ahead. But as they neared the ground, something shifted. The air around them crackled with energy as the starship Vengeance entered the heart of the Zorathian capital. Archer's heart pounded in his chest. He knew that this would be the most dangerous part of their mission. Everything they had fought for would come down to this moment. "We're almost there," Hawk said, her voice tight with anticipation. "Brace for impact." Archer's grip tightened on the chair. The starship Vengeance had sustained damage throughout the battle, but the crew refused to be beaten. Now, they were only a few minutes away from their final target, the Zorathian Command Center, the seat of their power. The ground assault. The starship Vengeance touched down with a violent jolt, sending vibrations through the entire ship. The landing was rough, but they had arrived. Archer and his team wasted no time. They had prepared for this moment their entire lives, and now it was time to put everything on the line. "Let's go," Archer barked as he led the charge down the ramp. The team followed, their weapons raised and ready. The air was thick with the smell of alien technology and the sound of distant explosions. The ground was rocky and uneven, and dark alien structures loomed all around them. The Zorathians weren't going to let them reach the command center without a fight. A wave of alien soldiers rushed at them from the shadows. They were fast, their armor gleaming in the dim light, their energy weapons crackling with power. But the humans were faster. Archer's team opened fire. Plasma rounds streaked through the air, striking Zorathian soldiers with deadly accuracy. The aliens fought back fiercely, their energy beams lighting up the battlefield, but they were no match for the humans' coordinated assault. With every step, Archer could feel the momentum building. The ground beneath them trembled as explosions rocked the area. "Keep moving," Archer yelled, motioning for his team to push forward. They were getting closer to the command center, but they couldn't afford to stop. Each alien soldier they encountered was a delay they couldn't afford. They had to reach the heart of the Zorathian Empire. Now, Stroud and Hawk cleared the way, while Archer and the others covered their backs. There was no time for hesitation. With each step they took, the enemy grew more desperate. But humanity was relentless. The Zorathians, for all their advanced technology and terrifying weaponry, had underestimated the human spirit. "Through that gate," Stroud shouted, pointing toward a massive metallic door that led into the heart of the Zorathian stronghold. It was guarded by a dozen alien soldiers, each one more powerful and dangerous than the last. But they didn't stand a chance. The team charged forward, blasting through the defenses. The air was thick with the sounds of battle. Explosions, gunfire, the crackle of energy shields. But despite the chaos, they pressed on, knowing they couldn't afford to lose. The final push. As they neared the entrance to the Zorathian command center, Archer's heart raced. This was the moment. The Zorathians had already paid a heavy price, but it wasn't enough. Humanity wasn't just fighting for victory, they were fighting for justice. Suddenly, the doors to the command center slid open, revealing a vast chamber filled with alien technology. The walls were lined with glowing panels, and strange symbols covered the floor. At the far end of the room stood the Zorathian leader, an imposing figure cloaked in dark armor, his eyes burning with hatred. "Captain Archer," the Zorathian leader's voice boomed, filled with disdain. "You're too late. Your people will never defeat us." Archer's eyes narrowed, his voice cold and steady. "You've taken everything from us. Now, it's time to pay." Without warning, the Zorathian leader raised his hand, and the room was suddenly filled with energy. The air crackled with electricity as the alien used his advanced technology to strike at the humans. The ground beneath them shook as barriers of force sprung up around the chamber, trapping them inside. "Don't back down," Archer shouted. "We've come this far. Finish it." With that, the battle inside the Zorathian command center erupted. The Zorathian leader unleashed a wave of energy that sent shockwaves through the room, but the humans fought back with everything they had. Plasma bolts and energy blasts filled the air as the final stand began. This was the moment of truth. Who would emerge victorious? The Zorathian leader's laugh echoed throughout the command center, his voice cold and filled with contempt. He stood there, surrounded by his alien soldiers and powerful technology, certain of his victory. He believed the humans had no chance against the might of the Zorathian Empire. But Captain Archer and his crew had come this far, not just for victory, but for vengeance. The loss of innocent lives and the destruction of their peaceful home had pushed humanity to the brink. Now, there was no turning back. The final battle had begun. The air was thick with tension as energy blasts and gunfire filled the command center. Archer's team was on the front lines, determined to finish what they had started. The Zorathian leader's energy blasts hit with incredible force, shaking the ground beneath their feet. But Archer's crew fought with all the strength they had. The pain and loss they had endured fueled their determination. They were no longer just fighting to win. They were fighting for every life lost, for every person taken too soon. Archer ducked behind a column of alien machinery, narrowly avoiding a deadly energy blast that singed the air above his head. Sweat dripped down his forehead as he peered around the corner, his mind calculating his next move. He could see the alien leader, standing tall in the center of the room, his dark eyes full of anger. The alien's hand crackled with energy, preparing for another strike. "Captain," Stroud shouted from across the room, his voice filled with urgency. "We need to disable this energy shield if we're going to stop him." Archer nodded, his eyes never leaving the Zorathian leader. "Roger that," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Everyone, focus on that shield. We take him down together." The final push. The humans had come prepared. They had studied the Zorathians' technology for years, learning its strengths and weaknesses. Archer had always known that this moment would come. This was the moment when they would face the true power of the Zorathian Empire. And now, it was time to show the aliens just how wrong they had been. The team moved with precision, covering each other as they advanced. Every shot fired, every movement made, was carefully calculated to wear down the alien defenses. Archer and his crew knew they were outmatched in terms of raw power and technology, but they had something the Zorathians didn't: heart. Stroud and Hawk led the charge, their weapons firing in perfect sync. Energy blasts exploded in the air around them, but they pressed forward without hesitation. The Zorathians fought back with all their might, but the humans had already anticipated their every move. They were ready for this final push. The Zorathian leader roared in frustration as he tried to repel the human assault. His energy shield pulsed with blue light, protecting him from the relentless attacks. But even the Zorathians had limitations. The humans knew that if they could weaken his shield just enough, they would have a chance to strike the final blow. "We've almost got it," Stroud shouted. His weapon fired another burst of plasma energy, striking the Zorathian leader's shield. The energy shield flickered and sparkled, growing weaker with each blow. Archer's heart raced. This was the moment. The shield was almost down. He turned to his team, his eyes steely with determination. "Now, everyone, give it everything you've got." The team responded without hesitation, their weapons unleashing a torrent of firepower. The Zorathian leader's shield flickered one last time before it collapsed entirely. For the first time, the Zorathians were vulnerable. The final blow. With the Zorathian leader now exposed, Archer didn't wait. He charged forward, his weapon raised and ready. Behind him, the rest of his crew followed, their eyes filled with determination. The Zorathians tried to regroup, but it was too late. The humans had broken through. The alien leader turned to face them, his dark eyes burning with hatred. He raised his hand, preparing to unleash one final devastating attack. But it was no use. Archer was too fast. With a single, well-aimed shot, he took out the alien leader's weapon, leaving the Zorathian powerless. The alien staggered back, his expression twisted with shock and disbelief. For the first time in this battle, the mighty Zorathians were at a loss. "This ends now," Archer said, his voice cold as ice. The Zorathian leader snarled, but before he could react, Archer and his team launched a final coordinated strike. A series of well-placed shots hit the alien in quick succession, each one weakening him further. Finally, with one last blast, the Zorathian leader fell to the ground, defeated. A stunned silence fell over the command center as the last of the Zorathian forces fell back. Archer's heart pounded in his chest as he took in the scene before him. The battle was over. The enemy was defeated. The Zorathians had been brought to their knees. And humanity had won. Vengeance achieved. As the Zorathian command center fell silent, Archer stood over the fallen alien leader, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The weight of what had just transpired hit him all at once. They had done it. They had avenged the lives lost, and they had destroyed the enemy that had torn apart their world. But it wasn't just about victory. It was about something much deeper. Archer's thoughts turned to the innocent lives lost, the people who had been taken far too soon. He thought about the young girl who had died at the hands of the Zorathians, the girl whose death had ignited this war. He could still see her face, her innocence, and the joy she had brought to those around her. The image of her smile haunted him as he stood there in the heart of the Zorathian stronghold. For her, for every life that had been destroyed by the Zorathians, this victory was theirs. The vengeance had been delivered. "We did it," Hawk said, her voice soft with relief. "We won." Archer nodded, but the satisfaction of victory was bittersweet. There would be no more innocent lives lost, no more people taken. The Zorathians would never again have the power to harm anyone. The galaxy was safe once more. But Archer knew that the war wasn't just about defeating the enemy. It was about what came next. What would humanity do after the dust had settled? Would they be able to rebuild, to heal the wounds left by this brutal conflict? Only time would tell. A new dawn for humanity. As the starship Vengeance made its way back to Earth, the crew stood in silence, reflecting on the monumental victory they had just achieved. The journey back was long, but the humans felt a sense of peace that had eluded them for so long. They had fought for justice, for the innocent lives lost, and they had succeeded. But even as the battle was won, new challenges awaited them. The galaxy had been forever changed by the war, and the scars left by the Zorathians would never fade. Humanity had proven that they were strong, that they could face the impossible and come out victorious. But now, it was time to rebuild. It was time to honor those who had fallen, and to ensure that no other race would ever suffer the same fate. As Earth came into view, the crew gathered on the deck of the starship Vengeance. The Earth below was peaceful, bathed in the light of the setting sun. It was a symbol of hope, of new beginnings. "We've lost so much," Archer said quietly, his gaze fixed on the earth below. "But we've gained something too. We've gained a future." Hawk stood next to him, her voice soft but full of conviction. "And we'll make sure we protect it."